There comes a time in every life when silence speaks louder than words, when the very people who doubted you, mocked you, or dismissed your voice suddenly begin to realize you were right all along. They regret not listening to you. They regret turning away when you tried to warn them, when you tried to love them, when you tried to speak truth into their hearts. And now the echoes of their rejection are chasing them, reminding them that what they ignored was not your opinion. It was divine wisdom flowing through you from God. My friend, when God places truth in your heart, when He gives you discernment beyond your ears, when He opens your spiritual eyes to see what others cannot see, you must understand you are not speaking from your own strength. You are being used as a vessel. You are carrying words that come from a higher realm. And often those words will not be received because people fear what they do not understand. They reject what comforts their comfort. They resist what exposes their pride. But in time, the truth of God always proves itself. Every seed of warning that you planted, every word of wisdom that you released, every tear you cried trying to make someone see it, it will all come back, and those who ignored you will feel the weight of their own choices. You see, the pain of being unheard is a heavy burden. It cuts deep when you try to help people and they turn away. It hurts when you can see the storm coming, but they laugh and keep dancing in the rain. Yet remember this, God allowed that rejection for a reason. He allowed your words to fall on deaf ears so that His plan could unfold exactly as He designed. Because sometimes people have to fall before they listen. They have to lose before they understand. They have to suffer before they value truth. And God will use that pain, both yours and theirs, to reveal something greater. He will show them that your silence was not weakness. It was strength under His control. He will show them that your warnings were not arrogance. They were love rooted in divine understanding. They will remember the things you said, the moments you tried to help, the nights you prayed for them, even when they mocked your faith. And one day, when the consequences of their choices finally catch up, they will whisper to themselves, "If only I had listened." But you, the one who spoke truth, the one who was misunderstood, you must not become bitter. You must not harden your heart. God did not raise you to be resentful. He raised you to be wise. He trained you through rejection to teach you compassion. Because once you've been ignored, once you've been dismissed, once you've been broken by people's blindness, you learn how to speak not from pride, but from power, tempered by humility. So do not despise the times when they laughed at your warnings. Do not curse the moments when they made you feel foolish. Every time you were rejected, you were being refined. Every time they rolled their eyes, heaven took notice. Every tear you shed, every silent prayer you whispered in frustration, God collected it. He was watching how you handled being ignored. He was measuring your response, not their reaction. Because when the tables turn and they finally come back, God wants your heart to be ready, not for revenge, but for victory. There will come a day when the same people who silenced you will seek your voice. The ones who called you dramatic will call you wise. The ones who told you to mind your business will ask for your advice. The ones who rejected your discernment will crave your prayers. And in that moment, you will not need to say, "I told you so." The peace on your face will speak louder than any words, because God Himself will vindicate you. Vindication is not loud. It is not always a public announcement. Sometimes vindication is quiet. It is the favor that follows you, the blessings that multiply in your life, the doors that open while theirs closed. God does not always prove your truth through confrontation. He proves it through transformation. He shows the world who you are by what He builds around you. The same people who ignored you will watch you rise, and deep in their hearts, they will know God was with you. And oh, how beautiful it is when God turns regret into revelation. Those who once mocked you will now understand why you were so passionate. They will see why you prayed so hard. They will finally grasp that your warnings were not born from pride, but from love. Because when you truly walk with God, your spirit carries a sound, a frequency of truth that unsettles the comfortable and comforts the unsettled. And that sound, though rejected at first, never dies. It echoes, it returns, it convicts. There are people right now remembering something you said years ago, something small, something you may have forgotten, but it stayed with them. Because when you speak with God's anointing, your words become seeds that never die. They might lie dormant for years, buried under pride, buried under denial, buried under ego. But when the storm hits, those seeds break open. They remember and they realize you were speaking from a place they couldn't yet see. God often allows the misunderstood to carry the truth of the future. Look through history. It is the same pattern again and again. The ones who saw ahead were mocked. The ones who heard God's whisper were doubted. The ones who spoke truth were silenced. But time always bends toward revelation. And when truth manifests, the same voices that mocked them now echo with regret. They wish they had listened. They wish they had trusted. They wish they had believed. And maybe, my friend, you are living through that very season right now. Maybe you tried to tell your family, don't go that way. Maybe you warned someone you love, that path leads to destruction. Maybe you spoke out of pure love, not to control, but to protect. And they turned against you. You watched them fall. You watched them walk into what you prayed they'd avoid. It broke your heart. But here's the truth. God saw your heart, and He is not done with your story. He will use your obedience, your faithfulness, and your silence as a testimony. Because sometimes the most powerful message is not the one you speak. It's the peace you carry after being ignored. God's presence in your life becomes a sermon without words. When others crumble, but you stand firm, they begin to see that what you carried was not opinion. It was divine stability. And when they come back, when they finally say you were right, do not gloat. Smile with compassion, because God's purpose in vindication is not humiliation. It is illumination. It is to show them that ignoring divine truth always leads to pain, and following it always leads to peace. Sometimes God allows you to be ignored because He's protecting your energy from people who cannot yet handle your wisdom. He allows them to walk away so that He can teach them through experience what they refuse to learn through your words. Let that truth settle in your spirit. They didn't reject you. They rejected the wisdom God sent through you. That is why you must not question your value when people refuse to listen. You must not doubt your anointing when others misunderstand you. Every prophet, every visionary, every spiritually awake soul goes through this season. The loneliness of being ahead of your time is the price of carrying divine vision. But the reward is peace, clarity, and divine favor. They regret not listening to you. They regret overlooking your warnings, ignoring your discernment, and brushing aside your wisdom. But you see, my friend, when God gives you vision, not everyone can understand it. When God opens your spiritual eyes, those who live in darkness cannot perceive what you see. They think you are overreacting. They think you are exaggerating. But you are seeing through the light that God placed within you. You were never speaking from emotion. You were speaking from revelation. There are times when God will reveal danger to your spirit long before it shows up in the natural world. He'll make you restless around people who wear a false smile. He'll make you uncomfortable in rooms that look good but are filled with hidden traps. You'll feel something shifting, something uneasy, and you'll try to warn others. but they laugh, they doubt, they question your motives. They don't know that God is using your spirit as an alarm. You're not judging, you're discerning. And when they ignore that discernment, when they choose their comfort over caution, the consequences come like a wave. And when that wave hits, they remember your words. Do not be disheartened when they remember too late. Do not let their regret turn into your bitterness. God has a reason for everything. Sometimes He allows people to ignore the message because He wants the lesson to come through experience. He allows them to walk through the storm so they'll finally value the shelter. He lets them fall so they'll finally understand the worth of your warning. You see, some people cannot learn by hearing, they must learn by hurting. But here is what's beautiful about God's justice. He always circles back to truth. The same people who dismissed your discernment will one day testify that you were right. And when they come back, you won't even need to speak. God's blessings on your life will speak for you. The peace you carry, the strength you've gained, the light that surrounds you, these will become undeniable evidence that God's favor was with you all along. There's something powerful about a person who learns to stand in silence while God defends them. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove your point. The one who walks with God carries authority without words. While others waste energy trying to be understood, you simply keep walking in obedience, and time becomes your greatest witness. Because time has a way of revealing who was truly listening to God. There were moments when you wanted to scream, moments when you wanted to shake them and say, "Why won't you see what I see?" But God whispered to you, "Be still." He said, "Let me handle what you cannot change." And though your heart broke, watching people you love walk into pain, your stillness became your strength. That stillness wasn't weakness. It was faith's under control. It was the quiet confidence that God's truth does not need to be defended. It will reveal itself. And when it does, those who mocked your restraint will see your wisdom. They'll look back and remember how calm you stayed, how you didn't fight, how you didn't chase after those who walked away. They'll realize that you were operating under divine instruction. You were not silent because you didn't care. You were silent because you trusted God to do what your words could not. This is what many do not understand. When God gives you a message, your job is to deliver it, not to force its acceptance. You plant the seed. God handles the soil. You speak the truth. God handles the timing. You cannot open deaf ears or soften hardened hearts. That's God's work, not yours. And sometimes the rejection you face is not personal. It's prophetic. Their rejection is proof that your message carried power too uncomfortable for them to receive. Think about that. They didn't reject you because you were wrong. They rejected you because you were right. Truth confronts lies. Wisdom challenges foolishness. Light exposes darkness. And people who live in denial will always resist revelation. But God will let them run in circles until their pride breaks. And then He will remind them of what you said. You see, regret is one of the most powerful teachers God uses. He'll let people sit in the very situation they were warned about. And as they cry out for help, the echo of your words will return to them. They'll remember how you tried to guide them, how you spoke gently, how you pleaded with them to see, but they didn't listen. That's when humility enters the heart. That's when they finally begin to understand the value of discernment. And you dare stop speaking truth just because people ignored you once. Do not silence your light to make others comfortable. The same God who gave you that wisdom expects you to keep using it. Even if they laugh, even if they walk away, even if you stand alone, because every time you speak truth, heaven takes record. You are doing the work of a watchman, warning before destruction, guiding before danger, planting before harvest. And even if no one listens, your obedience still counts in heaven. There is a blessing that follows those who remain faithful in silence. When others regret, you rejoice, not because they failed, but because you stayed faithful. When they look back and see how wrong they were, you look up and thank God for keeping you right. The peace you have today is not by accident. It's a reward for trusting God when you were misunderstood. Let me tell you something powerful. When people regret not listening to you, that's not your moment to feel superior. That's your moment to glorify God. Because it was never about you being right. It was about Him proving His word true through you. Every time your discernment was mocked, God was setting up a divine reversal. He was preparing a day when truth would rise like the morning sun, impossible to ignore. God's truth does not need human approval to be real. It doesn't fade just because people doubt it. Truth remains truth even in rejection. That's why you must never doubt what God placed inside you just because others don't recognize it. People didn't believe in Noah when he built the ark. They called him crazy, mocked his vision, dismissed his warnings. But when the flood came, the truth became undeniable. And that's how it works. When the flood of consequence comes, they remember your words. You may not be building an ark, but you are building your obedience. You are building your peace, your strength, your faith. And those who once laughed will see that your obedience was your protection. They'll see that your sensitivity to God's voice was your shield. They'll realize that ignoring you was not just rejecting advice, it was rejecting divine guidance. When God gives you insight, it is not for popularity, it is for purpose. When He allows you to see what others cannot, it is not so that you may boast, but so that you may guide, protect, and warn those around you. But do not be surprised when your guidance is resisted. Do not be shaken when your warnings are mocked. Truth is rarely celebrated in its season. It is often rejected, only to be remembered in regret. The same people who turned away from your counsel will one day turn back in tears, saying, "I wish I had listened." And when that moment comes, you will not have to lift a finger to defend yourself. God will have already written the evidence of your truth in their lives. There are times when God places you ahead of others spiritually so that you can see danger before it strikes. But when people are blinded by comfort, they cannot receive correction. You might see destruction coming while they see delight. You might sense danger in a friendship, a decision, or a path while they laugh and call you paranoid. But you are not paranoid. You are perceptive. You are tuned into the frequency of divine discernment. And that sensitivity is not weakness. It is a sacred gift. The pain of being ignored is the price of that gift, and the peace that follows is its reward. When people refuse to listen, you must learn to release them into God's hands. It is not your duty to force revelation into closed hearts. You can warn them once. You can speak truth with love. But after that, you must let God teach them through experience. Because sometimes God allows people to walk through fire so that they will finally believe in the heat. Sometimes He allows them to lose everything so that they can value the wisdom they once despised. And while they cry out remembering your voice, you will stand in peace. Not because you're pleased with their pain, but because you understand God's justice. The truth is, you were never rejected by them. They were rejecting the God who sent you. They thought they were ignoring a person, but they were ignoring divine instruction. And that's why the consequences that follow are not punishment. They are lessons written by God's hand. He allows regret to become the teacher that pride refused to be. He allows silence to speak where your words were once mocked. And that silence becomes louder than anything you could have ever said. Do not let the pain of being ignored harden your heart. Instead, let it deepen your faith. Because when God allows you to be rejected, He is protecting you from attachment to human validation. He is teaching you to depend on His voice alone. He is shaping you into a vessel that speaks truth without fear, loves without condition, and stands firm without applause. You will learn to speak when He says speak, and to stay silent when He says be still. That is the highest form of spiritual maturity, knowing when to step back and let God handle what only He can fix. And when He does it perfectly. When God begins to reveal who was right and who was wrong, it is never in arrogance or revenge. It is always in divine order. He brings clarity at the appointed time, not to embarrass anyone, but to glorify His truth. People will see with their own eyes that what they mocked was sacred. They will realize that the very thing they dismissed was their protection. And when that revelation hits, their regret will be heavy. But even in that, God is merciful. He allows regret not to destroy, but to humble, to bring people back to a place of respect for divine guidance. You who were once ignored must be prepared for that moment when they come back. Do not turn them away. God has already lifted you above bitterness. He has already healed what they broke. Your role is not to remind them of their failure. It is to reflect the mercy that God showed you while they doubted you. Because when you forgive, you prove that God truly dwells in you, and that forgiveness becomes a testimony that can transform the same hearts that once rejected truth. There will be people who wronged you, who doubted your intentions, who twisted your words, and yet God will instruct you to bless them. He will send them back into your life in humility, and He will test whether your love is stronger than your pain. That's how God operates. He uses the very people who hurt you to reveal how much you've grown in Him. They regret not listening to you, but you will not use that regret as a weapon. You will use it as an opportunity to display wisdom and grace. Do not mistake their silence for peace, my friend. Many who ignored you are now haunted by the memory of your voice. They remember your calmness, your certainty, the way you spoke truth when no one else dared to. And now that life has exposed what you foresaw, they cannot escape that conviction. That is the power of divine truth. It lingers. It stays in the mind long after the sound is faded. They may have rejected your message, but they cannot erase it. It becomes a mirror reflecting what they refuse to see. You may not see their regret publicly, but God does. Some of them cry in private, whispering, "If only I had listened." They look at your life now, blessed, stable, favored by God, and they realize what obedience produces. They see the peace that follows those who walk with God, and they finally understand that ignoring you was never wise. It was costly. But God allowed that regret to humble them, because regret is a doorway to repentance, and repentance opens the way for redemption. So let God complete His work. Don't try to control who comes back, when they come back, or how they apologize. Leave it to Him. The same God who allowed them to overlook you will decide when they will recognize you. And when they do, you won't need to say a word. The light of your peace, the strength of your faith, the joy in your spirits, all of it will speak louder than any explanation. You will be walking proof that God honors those who listen to Him, even when no one listens to them. You see, when you walk in truth, time becomes your greatest ally. Time exposes what words could not. Time reveals the difference between those who move by emotion and those who move by divine direction. And though you may wait in silence for years, God will never let truth remain hidden forever. He has a way of bringing everything full circle. The same people who ignored you will one day respect you. The same ones who doubted you will one day defend you. Because God never allows genuine obedience to end in humiliation. He always brings honor to those who trusted Him in secret. And when that day comes, do not gloat. Instead, lift your eyes to heaven and whisper, "Thank you, God." Thank Him for keeping you steady while they wavered. Thank Him for protecting your heart when they tried to break it. Thank Him for giving you wisdom that the world could not understand, because that wisdom was your shield. It kept you from walking into destruction. It guarded your steps while others stumbled. And that's why you must never apologize for seeing what God shows you. You were not meant to fit in with the blind. You were meant to lead with sight. That's why your presence unsettles people who live in illusion. Your discernment makes them uncomfortable because it exposes what they try to hide. But keep shining. Keep speaking truth. Keep obeying God even when your words fall on deaf ears. Because one day those same ears will open and the sound of regret will turn into the sound of awakening. They regret not listening to you, but that regret is not your burden. It is their awakening. God is using their regret to bring them closer to truth. So stand firm, stay humble, and let your life continue to be a testimony. Because every time someone remembers what you said, every time they whisper you were right, heaven smiles not because you won, but because truth prevailed. And when truth prevails, God's glory shines brighter than any human validation ever could. There is a point in life when silence becomes sacred, when words are no longer necessary because God Himself begins to speak through results. You see, when people refuse to listen, God does not argue with them. He lets time and consequence become the teachers they refuse to acknowledge. And that is exactly what He is doing in your life. Those who once rejected your words are now being schooled by reality. They are learning that when a person walks closely with God, their discernment is not human, it is heavenly. Their insight is not emotional, it is spiritual. Their warnings are not guesses, they're divine signals from above. You must understand, my friend, that being ignored was never a sign of weakness. It was a sign that your spirit was years ahead of their understanding. You were speaking from a place they had not yet reached. You were guided by wisdom that was too deep for their shallow ears. God allowed it, because every truth teller must learn how to stand alone. Every spiritually awake soul must learn that not all rejection is personal. Some rejection is protection. When God hides you from the approval of others, He is guarding the purity of your mission. He's teaching you to serve Him, not applause. When you tried to help them, your motive was love. You didn't speak to control, you spoke to protect. You didn't correct to shame, you corrected to save. But pride blinds people. Pride builds walls around hearts that should be open. So even when truth knocks gently, pride refuses to answer. And when the consequences of their pride arrive, they finally remember the sound of your voice, the voice they once dismissed. That's when regret begins to work in the soul. Regret is a powerful tool in the hands of God. It breaks what stubbornness built. It humbles those who once laughed, and it teaches those who once ignored. Do not ever underestimate the power of divine timing. God knows exactly when to reveal truth. He knows the precise moment when eyes will open and hearts will soften. While they were ignoring you, God was working in silence. While they mocked your warnings, God was preparing the evidence. And now, piece by piece, He's letting them see what you saw long ago. That's how God works. He reveals truth not in haste, but in holiness. He waits until the lesson will pierce deepest and last longest. Some of you are still wondering why God let them walk away, why He didn't make them see sooner. The answer is simple. Their blindness was part of your training. You needed to experience rejection to grow and strength. You needed to face silence so that you could learn the sound of God's whisper. If everyone had listened to you, you would have leaned on their approval instead of His direction. But now you know how to stand with dignity even when you stand alone. You know how to trust the unseen hand of God, even when no one else believes. That kind of faith cannot be taught. It must be lived. And those who ignored you will witness that strength. They will watch as you rise above what was meant to break you. They will see God's favor follow you like a shadow. They will see how peace surrounds you while chaos consumes others. They will see that the one they doubted became the one they now admire. And deep within, they will know it was God. It was God guiding you all along. It was God who gave you foresight when others were blind. It was God who kept you calm while they were confused. But remember, God does not vindicate you to make you proud. He vindicates you to make you purposeful. When they come back with regret, He will test your heart again. Will you gloat or will you guide? Will you boast or will you bless? That moment of vindication is sacred. Handle it with humility, because the same God who proved you right can humble you if pride enters your heart. Let your response reflect the character of the one who sent you. Show mercy where others showed mockery. Offer compassion where others offered cruelty. That's how you reveal that your wisdom was truly divine. You see, when you belong to God, your heart must remain free of revenge. You cannot carry the fire of bitterness and the light of truth at the same time. One will consume the other. So choose the light. Let God deal with their regret. Let Him finish His work. You simply stay faithful to your purpose. Keep speaking when He says speak. Keep praying when He says pray. Keep loving when He says love. Because every time you obey, you prove that your connection to God is not built on people. It's built on purpose. One day, those who ignored you will tell others about your wisdom. They will say, that person warned me. That person spoke truth. I didn't listen, but now I see. You will become a living testimony of what it means to walk with divine vision. And that, my friend, is the greatest reward. Not being proven right, but being proven faithful. Because in the end, it was never about being right. It was about being righteous before God. Think of how God honors those who carry truth with patience. He lets them suffer rejection so that their humility can be perfected. He lets them be mocked so that their motives can be purified. He lets them stand alone so that their foundation can be solid. And when the season of revelation arrives, He lifts them up, not for their own glory, but for His. When people see how God's hand protected you, provided for you, and positioned you after all the rejection, they will know there is something divine about your endurance. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. Every ignored word, every dismissed warning, every time they laughed instead of listened, it was shaping your spirit for a greater calling. God was using their deafness to sharpen your voice. He was using their mockery to strengthen your resolve. He was preparing you to lead from experience, not emotion. That's why your words will carry more weight in the future, because they were forged in the fire of rejection. When people regret not listening, they are witnessing the fulfillment of God's justice. But justice in God's hands is not vengeance. It is revelation.
It is the unveiling of truth that was always there, hidden beneath disbelief. And when that truth rises, no argument can deny it. That's why you must remain humble. The truth speaks for itself. You don't need to prove it anymore. The evidence of your peace, your endurance, and your blessings will declare what words no longer need to. Be patient with those who are still blind. Their awakening may take time, but God never leaves anyone in ignorance forever. He may allow them to walk through confusion, but his goal is always understanding. He may let them taste regret, but his goal is always redemption. And one day, you will look back and realize that everything, the rejection, the misunderstanding, the loneliness, was necessary.
It all built the character required to carry God's truth with love, not pride. You are a vessel of divine purpose. When they refused to listen, they were not rejecting you. They were rejecting the message entrusted to you. But that does not stop the message. Truth cannot die. It simply waits for the right moment to be recognized. And when that recognition comes, when the scales fall from their eyes and they see what you saw all along, they will not just regret, they will respect. So lift your head high, not in arrogance, but in gratitude. For you have walked through the valley of rejection and came out carrying revelation. You have endured the pain of being ignored and found peace in divine understanding. And now, as God continues to unfold his justice, you will see with your own eyes that every ignored warning was not wasted. It was written into the plan of destiny. They regret not listening to you, but their regret is not your burden to carry. It is a testimony that God speaks even when people refuse to hear. So keep walking with him. Keep trusting his voice above all others. Keep speaking truth in love, knowing that one day every word spoken in faith will find its fulfillment. Because God never lets truth fade. He lets it shine in its appointed time. And when it does, all regret turns into reverence and all rejection turns into revelation. And there comes a moment, my friend, when the very ones who mocked your silence, who laughed at your convictions, who dismissed your warnings, they will look back and remember your words. They will realize that what you said wasn't coming from pride or from anger or from some desperate need to be right. It was the whisper of God flowing through your soul. You didn't speak out of ego. You spoke out of revelation. You saw what they could not see. You felt what they refused to feel. You knew what they chose to ignore. Because when you walk closely with God, your spirit becomes sensitive to his direction. You begin to discern danger before it appears, storms before they gather, and betrayal before it is revealed. And that is why some people cannot handle you, because God allowed you to see too much. He opened your eyes to the truth while they were still comfortable in the illusion. He gave you spiritual hearing while they were busy feeding their pride. You tried to warn them, but they thought you were overreacting. You tried to tell them the path they were on would destroy them, but they called you judgmental. You tried to speak truth, but they chose the comfort of lies. And now they sit in the ruins of their choices, regretting that they did not listen when God spoke through you. Let me tell you something powerful. When God gives you vision, he also gives you loneliness, because not everyone can see what you see. You will cry for people who laugh at you. You will pray for people who talk behind your back. You will warn people who think you are against them. But you must not stop doing good just because they don't understand you. You are not doing it for their approval. You are doing it because God has chosen you as his vessel. There is a fire in your spirit that was not placed there by human hands. And even when they reject your voice, even when they ignore your words, even when they doubt your wisdom, God records it all. The same people who laughed at Noah while he built the ark later begged to enter when the rain began to fall. That is what happens when divine truth meets human arrogance. For a time, the world mocks. For a time, the doubters rejoice. For a time, the prideful walk tall. But then comes the day of realization, the moment when regret replaces laughter and shame replaces mockery. And that moment is coming for those who ignored your warnings, not because you wanted revenge, but because truth always proves itself over time. Every time you spoke, God was testing their hearts. He was seeing who would listen to wisdom and who would reject it. He was watching who could discern his voice behind your words, because you were never just speaking your mind. You were speaking the reflections of your spirit, guided by the light of God. That's why some of them could not stand to hear you, because your words pierced the lies they were living in. You carried light into their darkness, and instead of embracing it, they turned away. But light does not disappear just because people close their eyes. Sooner or later, the truth you carried will confront them again. And when that time comes, when they sit alone, surrounded by the consequences of their pride, your words will echo in their minds. They will remember how you tried to help them, how you urged them to pray, to change, to return to God. They will remember your tears, your patience, your quiet warnings. And they will whisper to themselves, I should have listened. That is the power of truth. It may be rejected for a season, but it never dies. God's words, once spoken through your lips, become seeds that will grow even in the hardest soil. Do not be discouraged when people turn their backs on your advice. Do not be bitter when they call you controlling or arrogant. Let them say what they want, because one day they will understand. One day they will realize that your correction was love in disguise, that your silence was wisdom, that your distance was protection. You did not walk away to punish them. You walked away to protect your peace, to stay in alignment with God's will. There is something holy about being misunderstood when your heart is pure. God uses rejection to refine your purpose. He allows people to ignore your voice so that you learn to depend on His. Every closed ear teaches you to speak less and pray more. Every hard heart reminds you that only God can open eyes. You were never meant to convince everyone, only to obey God. Once you have done that, leave the rest in His hand. Sometimes God will let your absence speak louder than your words. He will remove you from certain people so they can realize your value. When you were near, they took your wisdom for granted. When you were available, they misused your heart. So God steps in and separates you, not to punish you, but to protect what He placed inside you. Then after you are gone, after they feel the silence where your voice once stood, they begin to see what they lost. That is divine justice, not revenge. And when they come back with tears, when they apologize, when they finally see what you were trying to tell them, don't respond with arrogance. Respond with peace. Because those who regret not listening to you are already suffering enough. Their pride was broken. Their plans failed. Their ego humbled them. You don't need to remind them of what they lost. God already did that. Your role is to stay humble, stay faithful, and stay kind. Because your reward is not in their regret. Your reward is in God's approval. You see, God allows this process so that both sides grow. They learn the cost of pride, and you learn the power of patience. They realize that ignoring divine truth leads to pain, and you realize that being obedient brings peace.